October was a good reading month. Hey everyone, how you doing today? I'm Kirsty, and in October I read 10 books, which is fantastic because it's been a very up and down year, and I did go about 3 months where I barely read anything, and then August I read 10, September I dropped back down to like 5, and I was a little bit worried going into October because I was 7 books behind where I should have been to hit my yearly goal. I'm now 1 book ahead, so I am happy with that. I'm on track to hit my goal still, and I'm only now 1 book away from what I got last year. So in 2021 I read 68 books. I'm currently sat on 67, so only 1 more book and I shall be ahead of, well, at the same place I was last year. And my goal for this year, in case you've forgotten, is 80. But without further ado, I read 10 books. 1 was an ARC. I didn't do any audio or any ebooks this month, I just didn't get round to it. And all of these are rated 3.5 or above, so it was actually a really good reading month. There weren't any books that I inherently disliked. It was just that there were a few that weren't as good as maybe I'd hoped. And I've also done a massive reread of these books. I think 7 of them. 6 of them are Nalini Singh's because my mental health hasn't been in the best of places, and when my mental health is bad, I generally will turn to Nalini Singh and I reread The Psy Changeling because it's one of my big comfort series. And yeah, I kind of ended up, in 1 week I read 6 books. So yeah, been a bit of a binge. But anyway, we are going to kickstart with, as always, we're going to start with the lowest rated and then move our way up to my top rated and then announce which is my book of the month. And alas, the book that came in last this month, which was still 3.5 stars, I still had a good time with it. I still can't wait for the sequel. Unfortunately, it was the only ARC and it was only sent to me last month, and that was Silver in the Mist by Emily Victoria. This comes out today on November the 1st, and so happy publication day. And yeah, this was a good time. I really liked the characters. I loved the world building in this. The only downside is that the actual magic system wasn't very well explained. I spent a lot of the book going, but what is filigree? Like, what even is it to begin with? But by the end of the book, I'd kind of like gotten over that, and you kind of just accept that it's not going to be explained very well. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. My biggest gripe with this book, and I'm going to do a full review of it soon because I think a few people have had the same gripe, is this was sold to me as being asexual rep, and it was saying like, this is the book that you need for asexual rep and we need more asexual fantasy and this is it. It was like 1 sentence where it was vaguely mentioned that she wasn't attracted to anyone, and that was it. So I'm like, well, you can't really market a book as being asexual rep when there's no actual mention of asexuality or relationships in the book in the first place. And it felt a little bit misleading because the reason I applied for this ARC was for the asexual rep and didn't get what I thought we were going to get. So this one was 3.5 stars and 6.5 on my core pile scale. Don't forget, core pile is out of 10. Next we have the first of the Nalini Singhs, and then these guys don't crop up again till later because it's very rare that Nalini gets rated low. However, in the entirety of the Psy Changeling series, there are 2 books I really do not enjoy. One, because I hate the male lead. I think he is an absolute dick and I think he's a bully. And then the other one, to me, there's not really a connection between the main characters, and I only read it because it's got other stuff and other plot lines that are really important to the series. But the one that I'm going to talk about is Blaze of Memory. This follows Dev and Katya, and Katya has amnesia and is basically the enemy and ends up living with Dev. And yeah, I do not like Dev. I think I understand where he comes from, doesn't excuse his behaviour, and I actually think this is the most toxic relationship in the entire series. So yeah, this one wasn't rated very highly by me. This was 3.5 again, because there were some amazing moments in here and there were some brilliant quotes, and scored 6.71. Next up was a reread, another reread. This was like the month of rereads. But we have Fables Volume 1 by Bill Willingham. First time I read this, I gave it 3 stars. I didn't really enjoy it very much, and I wasn't sure if I was going to continue the series, so I thought I'd do a reread to see if maybe this time I would like it. And I actually really enjoyed it a lot more, and I do want to give at least the second volume a go before I decide whether I'm going to not continue the series or not. And this is a bunch of fairy tale characters whose homeworld was overrun and overtaken, and to escape the conflict they ended up in our world. The ones that can pass as human live in New York, in the main city. The ones that can't live on a farm further upstate New York. And it's just following like their lives, and you've got Snow White's sister who's been murdered, and it's like a murder mystery with fairy tale characters. And yeah, I had a really good time with this the second time round, and I giggled a lot more than I did. And I think it helped that I knew more of the stories. Like, there's a Bluebeard who I'd never heard of the first time, so I stopped reading to look up his story, whereas this time I already knew it, so I could just enjoy the story. This one was the first of the 4 stars and was 7.29. Next up, we have a book that I only actually finished last night, and that was Spectacle by Jodie Lynn Strock. And this had very Jack the Ripper vibes. It was 1800s Paris. You've got a young woman who writes for the newspaper, and she writes all the like reviews for the mortuary. And because in 1800 Paris you could actually go to the morgue and see bodies that were put out on display, and it was used more to help identify victims, especially from murder cases. And so she was in charge of writing about these people. And then suddenly she starts having these visions, and a new spate of murders have occurred, and she has these visions from the perspective of the murderer. So she now gets embroiled in all of this stuff to try and uncover who the murderer is and try to avoid being murdered herself. I really liked the first half of this. The third quarter was a little bit, it went a very different direction. It went more into like zoocryptology and paranormal science than murder mystery, spooky Halloween. And then by the end, it kind of all blended together again, and it became really good again. So I gave this one 4 stars, and this one got 7.36. Now we are back with the Nalini Sings for this next chunk of video. So if you are not interested in Nalini Sing, I apologise. I will try to make this bit as quick as I can. It's coming in at number 6. We have Hostage to Pleasure. And this follows Ashaya and Dorian, and he's a leopard, she's a Sai. I really liked their dynamic. I liked the conflict in Dorian because it was a Sai that murdered his sister. And my cat's yelling at the birds. Good girl, you scared them. So Dorian has this internal conflict of, these are the people that killed my sister, how can I be falling for one of them? And yeah, it just had some really great dynamics and some really great chemistry between them because of that. This one was 4 stars, 7.57. Then we have Mind to Possess, which was Clay and Tally's book. When I first started this series, I didn't like Clay, and I wasn't too fond of Tally, and their story just didn't interest me. This time round, I think because it's been about 7 years since I read this, and in that 7 years, I've gone through a lot of therapy myself and realised a lot of the traumas that I have. Yeah, I kind of saw it through fresh eyes, and I was a lot more with it. And also, now that I'm a trained teacher, Tally is like a child protection. Like, she doesn't work for Child Protective Services, but she works for a foundation that basically looks after these specific children. And as a teacher, I think I connected way more with her because a lot of the thoughts and feelings she had regarding these children and the safeguarding and protecting them are ones that I've had myself with my students. So I think this time around, I just got both of them a hell of a lot more, and I connected and I really enjoyed it. Again, though, I did find Clay, I think he's very similar to Dev in that he is a bit of a bully to begin with, and I'm not so fond of that. I don't really like bully romances. This one got 7.5, no it didn't, it got 8.14 and was the first of the 4.5s. Next up we have Wolf Rain, which I loved, and you can see I have a lot of highlights in this book because every one of those is a page number with a highlight. So I love this book. This one is Alexi and Memory, and Memory has basically been held captive for years, and Alexi finds her and just helps her to sort of re-establish herself within society and learn more about herself and her abilities. I think with this one, it had quite a lot of the other stuff going on around as well that I really liked, and I just really loved these two as a couple. They were very encouraging of each other, they supported each other, and there weren't really any of those big conflicts that you usually get. And I think that's why I love Nalini Singh's writing as well, is you don't get that third act breakup, or is extraordinarily rare. I think in the entire 16 books that I've read in this series, only one of them had a breakup, and that didn't even last that long. So I like happily ever afters. This one got 4.5 again, 8.29. Next we are on one of my all-time favourite couples in this universe, and that's Bonds of Justice, which is Max and Sophia. And Max is a human policeman, Sophia is a J-Psy, so she can reach into the memories of criminals and pull out their biggest, deepest, darkest secrets, and she's helped solve many a murder case. But the risk of that is that it could slowly corrupt her and turn her criminal. And this one had so many incredible moments in it. The love between Max and Sophia is incredible. Just, it had a character that I really like. She's one of the bad guys, I guess. She's depicted as not being great, but she comes into it quite heavily, and I just really, really like it. And there was an absolutely adorable moment from the first couple from the first book, and I just squeed and was so happy. And yeah, that's what I love about these books, is it brings in the couples that we've already met, and it interlinks in different ways that you don't expect. And I love it when it does that. But this one was one of my favourites. These guys are such a beautiful couple. This one was 4.5 and 8.43. And now we're coming into the top two. So coming in at number 2 is the last of the Nalini Singhs, Branded by Fire. This is Riley and Mercy's book, and you can tell by the massive grin on my face, I adore this book. The chemistry between these two is off the charts. The book opens with Mercy desperate to have sex and Riley just going for it. And the thing that is funny with these two is she's a cat, so she's like a leopard, he's a wolf, and so it's kind of it shouldn't work. But it's not really enemies to lovers, it's more reluctant allies, begrudging friends to lovers. So it's even though at the start they're having sex, it's kind of this doesn't mean anything, and I still hate you, and I hate that I'm doing this, but oh my god, it's so good. And yeah, many highlights. And again, these guys have got that relationship where they both just have such an unyielding love and support for each other, and it's they just know what the other one needs at any time. And the spice in this book is my favourite spice ever, because it's good. This one was 8.86, so only 0.14 off being a 5-star. So it is 4.5. The only reason it didn't become a 5 is there were a couple of things that happened in it that just feel a little bit repetitive and weren't stuff that I like, and it was just oh yeah, again. So I did get a little bit with that, but again, that's the downside when you read an entire series in a week, and this was the 3rd or 4th book in that series that I'd read. And then coming in at number 1 is a book that I will be doing a full review of, because I could talk for hours about this book. It has stuck with me and I already want to reread it, even though I only bought it a week ago. And that was 16 Souls by Rosie Talbot. This was 5 out of 5 stars, 9 out of 10. I picked it up from Waterstones. I went in Waterstones specifically to pick this book up. I got the very last copy, so unfortunately it is a little bit beaten and battered, like this is how it was when I got it. But best disability rep I've ever seen. Charlie is a bilateral amputee, and Rosie includes tiny little things that you wouldn't normally see. And it had like day-to-day snippets, like just from like the talking about the prosthesis rubbing to at one point Charlie goes from a flat pavement down onto like a cobbled street, and he just talks about how the cobbles affect how he walks. And it's little details like that that made this so incredible. There was amazing LGBT rep in here. There was very clear research that had gone into this. It was beautifully written. It was funny, chaotic, and dark. I was not expecting some of the things that happened in this. And Rosie is so, so sweet. If you follow her over on TikTok or anything, she is like the sweetest person on the planet. And that I was reading this going, bloody hell, Rosie, where did that come from? Like, you wouldn't expect certain things that are in this to come out of that rainbow and ray of sunshine. Like, it was so good. I loved it. And it was set in York, and basically you've got Charlie, who is a seer. Some of the ghosts start to disappear, including one that he is very close to. So he ends up teaming up with this other seer who's new to York, who's called Sam. And between them, they've got to try and uncover what's going on, find out what's going on, try and save the ghosts and keep themselves safe. And there were just so many things in this book that I didn't see coming. Some of it was a little predictable, but sometimes that's enjoyable. And yeah, I just thought this was fantastic. And like I said, some of the best LGBT rep, absolutely the best disability reps. You've got amputee in here, you've got mental health in here, you've got trauma, you've got deaf rep, and it's all included, but it didn't feel like a bingo card of, oh, let's make sure that I've included all these things, and it didn't feel forced. It just felt very natural and organic, and I loved that. And the writing, brilliant. Yeah, absolutely love this book and can't wait already. I want to reread it. So yeah, like I said, 5 stars, 9 out of 10. So that was my books for the month. And like I said, lots of rereads and a mixed bag, but overall a very good reading month. Oh, book of the month, obviously 16 Souls. I don't think that really needed saying, but for the book of the month showdown that's going to happen at the end of the year, 16 Souls will be the entry for October. So let me know what your book of the month was, and until next time, I will see you later. Bye.